We are now coming to order. It is October 7th, 2020 at 6:32. Due to concerns over large gatherings amid COVID-19 outbreak, community members are strongly encouraged to provide testimony via email or by telephone. Because of the federal, state, and local health department guidance and emergency measures, the assembly chambers are closed to the public. The Platting Board encourages anyone wishing to provide public testimony via telephone to email planningtestimony@anchorageak.gov by 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Provide your name, phone number, and agenda item number that you wish to provide testimony on. The subject line should read phone testimony. The secretary will phone you at the number you provide. You will be given 3 minutes to provide testimony on each item in which you wish to speak, or 5 minutes if you represent a group. All of the documents listed on the agenda are available online at www.muni.org/watchnow. The Platting Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday, except on holidays, as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete the agenda for its regular meeting, the Board carries over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public is allowed to speak at the meeting is, after staff's presentation is complete on a public hearing item, we will ask for public testimony. People wishing to testify are given a time limit by the Commission Rules of Procedure. The petitioners are given 10 minutes. They may reserve part of their time for rebuttal. Representatives of group community councils are given 5 minutes, and individuals have 3. When your testimony is complete, the Board may ask you questions, and you may testify once on an issue unless further questioned by the Board. Any individual may have appeal rights to any action this Platting Board takes. Appeal of a decision or any of the conditions is governed by Anchorage Muni Code 21.11.304. The decision of the Board at the scheduled public hearing becomes final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based on the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Planning Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the Muni Clerk a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances under AMC 2111-503, or an appeal of the final appealable decision under AMC 2130. With that, we will now have roll call.
Valerie Ritz.
Present.
Clayton Walker.
Present.
Kevin Cross.
Present.
Don Porter.
Present.
Mark Seward. Jana Weltzen.
Present.
Becky Lipson.
Present.
Karen McGillivray.
Present.
Thank you.
Next, we'll turn to approvals, and we have an action summary from Wednesday, September 16th, 2020. May I have a motion to approve the action summary? Kevin Cross has moved, and Valerie Ritz has seconded. Is there any opposition to approving the action summary? Seeing none, the motion passes. We'll next turn our attention to I have 3 action summaries, but there's only one on the agenda, right? Okay. They didn't give me the minutes. Next, we'll turn our attention to the minutes. We have minutes for Wednesday, September 16th, 2020. May I have a motion to approve the minutes? Kevin Cross has moved, and Valerie Rich has seconded. Are there any corrections or additions that need to be made to the minutes? Seeing none, is there any opposition to approving the minutes? Seeing no opposition, the minutes are approved. We'll now turn to special order of business disclosures.
This is Karen McGilvery.
Yes,
I'd like to declare a conflict in case number S12575, Eagle River Lane, Owl's Nest subdivision. I know the petitioner personally, and it'd be difficult to remain impartial. I'm requesting to be recused from participating.
thank you. May I have a motion to directing Karen McGilvery to participate? Kevin would you like to state your motion, Kevin?
Yes, in the case of S12575, amendment to S125, 451, I move for Karen McGilligray to participate.
Thank you. And that motion has been seconded by Valerie Ritz. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I will not be supporting this motion. Karen has stated that she has a direct conflict of interest and a personal relationship with the petitioner, and therefore I will not be supporting her participation in this case.
Thank you. Are there any other findings the board would like to offer? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. Valerie Ritz.
Nay?
And I am a nay. Kevin Cross.
Nay.
Don Porter.
Nay.
Mark Seward. Jana Belton.
Nay.
Becky Lipsum.
Nay.
Thank you. And with that, the motion fails, and Karen McGilvray, you are directed to recuse yourself from the matter. Are there any other disclosures this evening?
Yes, this is Becky Lipson. I have two disclosures to make. The first is in case S12573. I'm asking to be recused from participating as Bill Taylor and Colony Builders are clients of my law firms, and I've performed work associated with the subdivision. I do not believe I can be fair and impartial, therefore I'm asking to be recused from voting.
Thank you. May I have a motion directing Becky Lipsum to participate in case S12573? Kevin Cross has moved. The motion's been seconded by Valerie Ritz. Would you like to speak to your motion, Mr. Cross?
In the case of 12573, I move for Becky Lipson to participate.
Thank you. And did you want to support that motion?
No, I will be not supporting that. She says that the petitioner, Bill Taylor, she has a business and financial relationship with him. It's a direct conflict of interest, so I will not be supporting.
Thank you. Are there any other findings offered by the board? With that, we will call the vote. Valerie Ritz.
Nay?
Kevin Cross.
Nay.
Don Porter.
Nay.
Mark Seward. Jana Wilson.
Nay.
And Karen McGilvray.
Nay.
And I'm a nay, and the motion fails. Becky Lipscomb, you are directed to recuse yourself from case S12573. Did you have any other disclosures?
Great. Yes. In case S12575, I'm also asking to be recused from participating as Spinell Homes. The petitioner is not only a client of my firm's, but I've performed work associated with this subdivision. I do not believe I can be fair and impartial, and therefore I'm asking to be recused from participating.
Thank you. May I have a motion directing Becky Lipscomb to participate in case S12575? I believe Kevin Cross has moved and Valerie Ritz has seconded. Would you like to speak to your motion, Kevin?
Yes, in the case of 12575, I move, with Spinell Homes, I move that Becky Lipscomb participate. And speaking to that matter, I will not be supporting this motion. As we stated previously, she's worked on this project, has financial relationship due to her work with the project, and cannot be impartial.
Thank you. And your motion has been seconded by Valerie Ritz. Are there any other findings the board would like to make? Is there anyone in favor of the motion? Seeing no one in favor of the motion fails. Becky Lipscomb, you're directed to recuse yourself from case S12575. Do we have any other disclosures this evening? Seeing and hearing no requests for additional disclosures, we'll now turn to informational items. On informational items, I believe we have two of them. One for short plat from September 8th, 2020, a case S12572, and a short plat for case S12574 from September 14th. The record reflects that those have been noted. We will now turn to our first case of the evening, new business, case S12569, Petitioner Castle Group Holding LLC. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to vacate a 25-foot creek setback easement, 50 feet in total, on each side of the common property line of tract D1A and D1B. That was dedicated when the South Anchorage South subdivision was originally subdivided in 1987 per plat 87-130. There are no protective creeks setback easements on properties upstream or downstream from the subject parcel. Watershed Management Services concurred that there is no stream present in the location of the platted creek setback easement and is supportive of the easement vacation request. In the matters regarding the criteria, staff has found that criteria 1 has been met. While no dedicated right-of-way is involved in this request, the creek setback easement appears to have been determined by historical property per the original 82-236 plat. The applicant states the setbacks are an unnecessary encumbrance affecting the ability to use the property, and Watershed Management Services is supportive of the easement vacation request. The 50-foot creek setback easement may be considered surplus to the current and future needs of the public. Criteria 2 has been met. This creek setback easement does not affect any existing or planned right-of-way that is part of the official Streets and Highways plan. Standard 3 has been met. The creek setback easement, it's not lying on the half-mile grid, as is with set number 4. It's not lying on the quarter-mile grid. Standard 5, this vacation will not have any impact on traffic circulation and is not part of the official Streets and Highways plan. Condition number criteria 6, this vacation will not result in a realignment of any existing right-of-way and does not impact existing traffic circulation. And in order to maintain continuity of drainage across the project area from upgrading areas and drainage ways that currently drain onto the subject parcels, Watershed Management Services requested a condition of approval that the petitioner resolve with private development the need for and location of any drainage easements. That condition placed on the approval of the plat will require any drainage easements to be placed, and that should address any drainage concerns that the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities may have related to drainage runoff. They had sent a staff comment in on that. So with that, planning recommends approval. We have two parts there. Approval of the request for vacation of this creek setback easement, which is found on page 4, and approval of the plat for 24 months, which is found on page 4 as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. And with that, does the board have any questions? So was this not a stream in the first place? It's just a drainage that was mislabeled as a stream at some point?
It looks like it was just kind of placed on the plat, originally, and yeah, there's no stream.
Thank you. Does that raise any questions for the board? Seeing and hearing none, we will now ask for the petitioner's representative.
This is Brenna Hughes here with P&D Engineers. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, could you state your name again, please?
Brenna Hughes with P&D Engineers.
Thank you, we hear you better. You may
Thank you.
proceed. Did you want to reserve part of your time for rebuttal?
Yes, please.
How much would you?
The applicant, sorry,
How much would you like to reserve?
2 minutes.
Okay. You may proceed.
So the applicant has nothing new to add to the application. The platted stream right-of-way exists where there is no stream on the property. And the applicant has no objections to the watershed management's request for coordination with the development for managing drainage after the stream setback is removed. We know of no encumbrances or easements that would hinder removing this easement. And the site has been visited by Watershed Management in 2017 to view the property and confirm the findings. And that's all I have at this time.
Thank you. And it looks like you have 9 minutes and 1 second for rebuttal.
Sounds good, thank you.
Do we have any questions from the board? Seeing and hearing none, we'll now turn to the public. Do we have anyone from the public? Looks like we have Laura Hughes.
Hi, this is Laura.
Yeah, good evening, Laura. This is the Platting Board calling for your testimony for case S12569.
Yes.
Couple questions for you. Are you testifying on behalf of yourself as an individual or a representative of the group?
Myself.
Okay, perfect. You'll have 3 minutes to testify. At the conclusion of your testimony, the board may ask you questions. If there are no questions, the phone call will end. You may begin your
Okay.
testimony when you're ready.
Am I on?
Yes, you can start when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Laura Hughes. I live on Forest Drive, which is east of the proposed creek setback, and I oppose this vacate. A neighbor on Forest Drive, she has a natural and active running stream that runs into the area of the proposed vacate. Oh, I'm hearing the... Sorry, I was hearing feedback. My apologies. This springs that runs behind this home on Forest Drive, it runs into the property of the proposed vacate. This is not a drainage. It's a spring that runs year-round, and I feel that this has been overlooked and needs to be addressed. Also, while I'm not, I don't have a formal education in hydrology, when you are on O'Malley and you're looking to the south and you're looking to this low-lying wetland area, it's pretty obvious that there's a water issue. When you look at aerial photos, you can see the natural area of where the creek is, and I don't know how it's determined that a creek can suddenly no longer be there, but it's obvious that this area is very wet and has a water issue, and that creek bed does flow to the south to a wetland conservation area. And to be honest, I'm a little concerned for the future residents of that area that they will be dealing with water problems. I know that there's another development in South Anchorage that was not developed properly, and there's many homeowners there that are dealing with the consequences of that development not being properly done and those issues not being addressed thoroughly before the property was developed. And that's all my comments at this time.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Laura Hughes?
This is Becky. I have a question for staff prompted by Ms. Hughes' question. So on page 45 of our packet, it says watershed management services has the following comments, and then it has this case number. And it says WMS concurs that there is no stream present in the location of the previously platted stream setback easement and is supportive of easement vacation request. So my question for staff, and if you don't know, that's fine, but based on what Ms. Hughes has said, is there any information you could provide that speaks to how Watershed Management Services made that determination?
Ms. Lipson, for the actual stream there, they probably used their GIS, or they went out in the field and looked at that actual, and aerial photos, the actual creek setback easement that as it existed. However, any other streams, or what they have classified as a stream on the property, stream setbacks still apply. So if they have noted over by Forest Drive or anything on that corner of the parcel, if there's a stream there that they classify as a stream, it will have our code stream setbacks. Otherwise, if it's a drainage, that's why the condition is placed on there to provide drainage easements. So if it's not classified as a stream, but it's definite drainage, that will be set aside in a drainage easement at the time of development. This plat in action is really just removing an old stream setback easement for a stream that doesn't exist, or maybe somewhere else. Is that
Can
answer your question?
Sorry, this is Laura. Can I add a remark or add a question, I guess?
Here, I will. So this is Becky Lipson again. Ms. Hughes, based on what you've heard from staff, do you have any questions for staff?
Yes, my question is the stream that is behind my neighbor's house on Forest Drive that runs down to the low-lying area very well may connect to the existing stream, maybe not at the start of where it is on this map, but it is a moving natural stream, and I'm just wondering how that has been reported or documented or studied.
As a matter of housekeeping,
If I may,
as a matter of housekeeping, before we hear that comment, can the people who are attending online mute their telephones? Because we're getting feedback from people not having muted.
This is Brenda Hughes with the petitioner. May I respond?
Yes.
There is a drainage way from Furrow Creek Drive shown in the Muni's drainage viewer, and to our understanding does exist, but that is not related to the stream setback that's being petitioned to remove. That's to the southeast corner of the property.
Thank you. We will now take, are there any other questions for Laura Hughes before we move on? Seeing and hearing none, we'll take our next caller.
hello?
Good evening. Is this Janin Kaufman?
Yes.
Hi, Ms. Kaufman. This is the Platting Board calling for your testimony in case S12569. Are you testifying?
Okay.
Are you testifying as an individual or a representative of a group?
Individual.
Okay, great. You'll have 3 minutes to testify. At the conclusion of your testimony, the board may ask you some questions. If there are no questions, the phone call will end. And if you're ready to begin your testimony...
Yes, this is Janan Kaufman.
Okay, you can go ahead and begin your testimony when you're ready. Thank you.
As an individual.
Ms. Kaufman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
If you could, it sounds like we've got some reverberation going on. If you could mute any phones or TVs that you might have going on in the background, that would be greatly appreciated.
Is your phone muted, John? Is it muted? John, well, we have, I don't know what that ringing is. I don't have anything else on.
Okay.
Maybe we need to mute the, I'm just gonna go outside. Okay, just a minute.
Okay, I'm outside now.
Okay, great. You can begin your testimony when you're ready.
Okay. My name's Jananne Kaufman. I live on Forest Drive. I've been on this property in this house since 1990. I have, for the 30 years, I have been hiking in the area of the Castle Group's proposed development. I know the water in the land and how the water moves very well. I walk in every season. We wear hip waders if we're walking when the ground isn't thoroughly frozen, because not only is there the spring that Laura just mentioned, but there's several other springs along Forest Drive just below our property and the adjacent properties from our line over to O'Malley. And so if you walk the due north, you'll come across several springs. And if you walk just in the area, like downhill, it's hummocky with water that is deep between the hummocks and the solid ground. When it's last December, I walked there. You think the ground is frozen and there's snow on the, everywhere else around, and on the paths, solid paths, but down there it's flowing water. So there's a huge amount of flowing water on the hill flowing to the west down to the valley in what we have always called, for the 30 years we've lived here, Furrow Creek. In the wintertime, when the water has finally frozen, there's a very flat, even area of ice where the creek exists and creates a path for us to walk on. So even when there's almost no snow on the ground, we can cross-country ski there because that flat ice will collect enough snow for the skis. And so I challenge anyone who would consider this setback or any other action that would change the existing classification of this creek to come with me on a walk with your hip waders on, so we can see how much water there is there. I have not seen a change in the water in the last 30 years. So most of the water to that creek drainage area is coming right out of the hillside. Anyway, I don't know how my time is because I had to go outside to make this phone call.
Well, you're at 8 seconds left.
Well, anyway, I really think you need to walk down there with me before you vote on this. And I'm the one to take you because I know the area.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Jananne Kaufman? Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, Jananne. Kevin Cross here. I have a question. We're looking at the petitioner's map, and they've mapped out what they say is, from our understanding, is an old drainage. Is it possible? I mean, I guess, have you verified that the spot that they've notified is in fact the drainage that you're currently seeing? Because it's my understanding is there's more than one on this plat, and they're looking to remove the one.
This is a valley. This is a valley with a distinct bottom. And at the bottom of the valley, I mean, it's fairly boggy all the way down the hill. Not on the hill that faces east, but on the hill. The valley runs north-south, and on the hill that faces west, below my house and the other houses on Forest Drive, it's excessively wet, and it goes down to the bottom and forms a creek, and it flows south. There may not be a creek on the other side of O'Malley because they built up O'Malley and they didn't put a culvert in.
Okay.
The water comes from the hillside to form the creek.
So the water then, what you're saying is it runs southwest. And
The water's running west down the hillside. And then when it gets to the bottom
Yeah.
of the valley, it runs south towards the Tanglewood Golf Course area.
Okay, so then
And-
it's from water that's running down the side of O'Malley Road and then runs into that area. Okay.
I don't think it's coming off O'Malley Road. The source of the water is underground water that comes out as artesian springs on the hillside. And then the land is just wet as can be, the entire hillside, excessively wet.
Okay, thank you.
Does that raise any other questions from the board? Thank you, Janine Kaufman. And with that, we will return to the petitioner's representative.
Hi, yes, the only thing that I have to add is that the petitioner did hire a company to perform a wetland delineation, and I can provide a copy of that wetland delineation. Most of the area in question, 22 acres of the property, were delineated as open forested wetland and scrub shrub wetland with some areas of emergent wetland. So that I can provide a copy of this wetland delineation. There's no notation of any streams. There are certainly areas shown that have open water, which is characteristic of certain wetland types. So we're coordinating with the Army Corps of Engineers to permit for impacts to wetlands for this project.
Thank you. Does that raise any other questions from the board for the petitioner's representative?
Yes, this is Becky. I have a question for petitioner's representative. Do you know why the Anchorage Watershed Management indicated that there's no streams? Like, what measures were taken to make that determination?
I'm sorry, I think there is a letter from that visit in 2017, so I'll need just a couple of minutes to find. I haven't come up with that letter yet, but we'll do that right now.
While we're waiting on them to find their document, Mr. Cross.
Mr. Whitfield, what is the process for determining the difference between a stream and a ditch?
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, that is actually a determination that's made by watershed management, and one of the points I wanted to bring up in this particular case was the fact that watershed management determines whether it's a drainage way or a stream. If watershed management determines it's a stream, then the setback requirements of Chapter 7 of Title 21 apply, regardless of whether there's an easement there or not. So the vacation of this easement, should there be a stream there, the setbacks will still apply and provide protection to, potentially any neighboring property that would be close by. But in this particular case, the determination on whether there's a stream or a drainage way is made by watershed management. I can't say in this particular case whether they did looked at aerial imagery or they did a formal site visit, but they've determined through their comments that no stream exists on the property.
And I imagine in their research, they would have taken into determination probably the source of the water and verified whether it was an artesian well or whether it was drainage from surrounding development over, the creation of O'Malley Road 60 years ago.
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, yes, that is correct. Obviously, this property, as the two people testifying tonight had said, is very wet. Whether there is a stream on the property, I can't say. I would rely on the professionals of watershed management to make that determination for the planning department.
Thank you.
This is Brenna Hughes with P&D. I have located the form. So the form itself does not specify the source of the information, but it's from Kyle Cunningham with Watershed Management, and says that the property does not contain stream channels, but does contain a drainage way. And in his attached email, it says it's likely that a stream that used to be in that area was rerouted at some point in the past and no longer flows through the parcels. As the drainage way across the parcels appears to carry flows from adjacent properties and O'Malley Road, you'll need to maintain continuity of drainage across the parcel under post-development conditions, but WMS agrees the feature is not a stream and is supportive of having the stream setback removed.
Thank you. And Mark Seward.
Thank you.
Sorry about the technical delay here. I've been trying to get on board here. On page 23 of our staff packet, WMS, it shows where midway down the page it states it does not contain stream channels and drainage ways, and stream channels is circled. Then the next line is checked too, where it says it does contain drainage ways. So that kind of identifies where what we're speaking about on this creek easement. It doesn't contain stream channels, but it does contain drainage ways. So I think that's where we're in limbo. So we're strictly looking at the easement for the stream channel. So that kind of clarifies and summarizes it, where there's no stream channel, but there is drainage ways. And I don't think in Title 21 drainage ways have setbacks on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of order real quick, through the chair, Mr. Seward, that is actually incorrect. Drainage ways do have setbacks, but they're a smaller setback than that would be applied to a stream.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
It
you.
shows in that same statement, I'll just finish up there, that they have field and the archival mapping information on that, so it's kind of a catch-22 versus stream channels versus drainage ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time for petitioner's representative? Seeing and hearing none, I thank you for your participation and close the public hearing portion, and the matter now rests with the board. I'll take a motion for approval of the request for vacation. Kevin, would you like to state your motion?
Yes, I move to approve the request for the vacation on a 25-foot creek setback of 50 feet total on each side of the common property line of tract D1A to D1B, dedicated per plat 87-130, subject to condition 1.
Thank you. And Valerie Ritz has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, we had some very good public testimony here, particularly concerned with whether it was a creek or whether it's a drainage, and that ultimately is what it comes down to. And it was a determination by Watershed Management that this is a drainage. They did their research, and therefore the creek setback does not apply. I do understand it is a wet area, and obviously they'll have some development concerns they'll have to take into with the future use. But regarding this particular section of water, it is deemed a drainage, and therefore I move to approve the request.
Thank you. Are there any additional findings the board would like to make?
Yes, this is Becky. I too will be supporting this motion. I agree with what Mr. Cross said, and I agree with staff's comments. We are relying on Watershed Management to get this correct, and while I appreciate the members of the public testifying tonight, and I can understand how frustrating this process can be given, what you see and the water. We don't have the opportunity to walk the premises, which I think is private property. And I would, so we're relying on watershed management to get it right. And if you have questions after this hearing, please feel free to reach out to watershed management and staff.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Don Porter. When you get a chance.
Don Porter, you have the floor.
I will be supporting this motion. I do have some understanding of the differences between a drainage way and a creek setback, and I also have an understanding there's a wide swath of wetlands that are passing through this area, and the reality is that we are protecting the drainage way requirement, by the action that we're taking. And we're actually making it so that wherever the water is, it will be protected. I believe the wetlands are much bigger issue than just the drainage way, and the developer of whoever is going to do anything with that lot is going to have to work with the governing entities to deal with not just the narrow strip of what is a drainage way, being called a drainage way, but with the entire swath of wetlands that are through that area. And they will have to follow all appropriate law that governs that. So it's fully protected. And so I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Any additional findings? I would like to make the findings that with the determination that the area in question is not a stream, but a drainage area that makes the right-of-way surplus to the needs as a stream protection, and therefore meets provision 1 of the code. Number 2 is the highway and the grid line issues that obviously are not met in this case either. And accordingly, I would be supporting the vacation of the creek easement. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Been requested by the secretary that we take a vote, so I'll call the vote. Valerie Ritz.
Yay.
Kevin Cross.
Yay.
Don Porter.
Yay.
Mark Seward.
Yay.
Jenna Welton.
Yay.
Becky Lipson.
Yay.
Karen McGilvray.
Yay.
And the motion passes. I also approve. We will now turn our attention to case S12573, and no, sorry. I'm moving on too fast. Been asked for one more motion in this case, approving the plat. Kevin Cross.
I move to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to the following conditions: resolve utility easements, and resolve with private development the need for and location of drainage easements.
Thank you. And Valerie Ritz has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, we've already determined that watershed management has said this is not a creek but a drainage, and part of the public's concern was that I think that their thought is that means that it will not be respected or protected. And I do want to point out that on section 2, resolve with private development the need for location of drainage easements, which means additional easements may apply in this case.
Thank you. Any other findings from the board? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the vote. Valerie Ritz.
Yay.
Kevin Cross.
Yay.
Don Porter.
Yay.
Mark Seward.
Yay.
Jenna Wilson.
Yay.
Becky Lipsum.
Yay.
Karen McGilvray.
Yay.
Clayton, yay. And the motion passes. We'll now turn our attention to case S12573, Bill Taylor. And Becky Lipsum is recused from this matter and from the next one, so she's excused for the remainder of the hearing.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. And I forget which one. Karen, which one are you recused from? The next one? Okay.
The next one.
All right. So now that Becky has left the meeting, we will now take petitioner or the staff's presentation of S12573.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to remove plat note number 9 from plat 19-80, Winchester Glen subdivision. Plat note number 9 reads as follows. Each lot in the subdivision shall apply for and receive approval for a driveway permit from the Municipality of Anchorage Development Services Department prior to approval of a building permit. So the applicant in this case has asserted that the plat note is not necessary because the Municipality of Anchorage Development Services Department concurred that the Type 2 rolled curb in the subdivision does not warrant requiring driveway permits in most cases. The Type 2 rolled curb in the Winchester Glen subdivision was approved through a variance and preliminary plat case S12464. For agency comments on this application, the Traffic Department was the primary commenter, and they objected to the request to remove plat number 9. There are 8 lots in the subdivision on the cul-de-sac bulb, and those are lots 10 through 17, that have a frontage of less than 40 feet. In such cases, the Traffic Department typically requires a driveway permit or review prior to building permit approval to ensure the width and location of proposed driveways are consistent with AMC 2107-110F3. This section limits driveway width to 40% of the frontage of the lot or 33% if conditions warrant. Per Anchorage Municipal Code, this is intended to, quote, provide adequate space for snow storage within the right-of-way, to have space for on-street parking where appropriate, and to discourage the majority of the front area of a lot from being paved and or used for vehicle parking, end quote. While the Traffic Department agrees that the existing plat note does not need to apply to all of the lots in the subdivision, they do not support removing the note entirely. And I believe that there was a note distributed prior, or a memo distributed to the Platting Board prior to this case, or prior to this meeting. Originally, the Traffic Department and Planning recommended a plat note due to this comment from Traffic reading as follows. Lots 10 to 17 shall apply and receive approval for a driveway access permit from the Municipality of Anchorage Development Services Department prior to approval of building permit. After speaking with the applicant and reviewing internally, we are now recommending an updated note that differs from the one in the staff report, and that would read, development of lots 10 to 17 must be reviewed by the Traffic Engineering Department prior to approval of building permit to ensure all proposed driveways meet current code and municipal driveway standards. And the reason for this change was so the department and the applicant felt that a permit for a driveway was not necessary, provided that traffic engineering had the opportunity to review the placement of the driveway and that it, in such narrow frontage situations, that it met Anchorage Municipal Code. So no other reviewing agencies outside of traffic had objections to the requested plat note removal, and full comments from all reviewing agencies are available in attachment number 3 of the staff report. And additionally, no comments were received from the Community Council or the public. Considering the staff analysis, the criteria listed in 2103-200G9 must be met for successful removal or modification of a plat note. Those criteria are listed and addressed as follows. A, conditions are required the plat notes on the original plat have changed and the need for the plat note has been negated. Conditions that required the plat note have changed because the Winchester Glen subdivision received a variance to the requirement to provide type 1 barrier curb. As noted previously, however, the Traffic Department raised an objection to the complete removal of the plat note and has indicated that the condition of lots 10 to 17 in Winchester Glen subdivision still need a plat note requiring driveway review and approval. The Traffic Department also requested a similar level of review in their comments on the original application for the Winchester Glen subdivision. And conditions have not changed enough for lots 10 to 17 since the original application to negate those comments and level of review. Criteria B, modification or removal of the plat notes will not have a negative impact on adjacent or nearby properties. So complete removal of plat note number 9 may negatively impact adjacent properties. Specifically, removing the note may prevent a driveway review that would otherwise have been required to prevent street maintenance, access, and parking impacts to adjacent lots resulting from driveway widths and locations on lots with narrower frontages. Modifying the plat note to include only narrower, less than 40 feet, lots 10 to 17, would minimize the potential for negative impacts on properties within the subdivision. C, plat, despite modification or removal of the plat notes, the plat continues to meet the approval criteria of subsection 2103-200C9. Plat 19-80 would continue to meet the approval criteria for plats in subsection 2103-200C9 if plat number 9 is modified to apply only to lots 10 to 17. With that being said, the department recommends for Winchester Glen subdivision a modification of the existing plat note number 9 to read as indicated in the memo that was distributed prior to the hearing. If you have any questions on this report, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. When did they get the variance to the plat? And when was it platted?
So I believe the plat was, it was 2019.
And the variance
The
was
variance-
granted at the same time as the plat approval?
It was at the same time or shortly after.
Well, one of the first conditions in order to have a changed circumstances is that the change occurred after the plat. And if we're talking about a variance that was granted at that time, we don't have a changed circumstance.
Mr. Walker, Dave Whitfield, Planning Department. With respect to this plat note, if I could provide just a little bit of history to the board with respect to this plat note. The plat note came from private development, an employee of private development that was somewhat speaking on behalf of the right-of-way section and the requirement to obtain a driveway permit. When the applicant went to develop the parcels and approached the right-of-way section to obtain a permit, the right-of-way section said no permit is required. And it was at that point that the applicant or developer came to the planning department and said, what do I need to do here? So I followed up with right-of-way, verified that no permit was required, and it was at that point that the applicant decided to submit an application to amend the plat note. We believe that the traffic department's comments can be adhered to without the need of obtaining a permit, and we believe that the modification of that plat note is warranted.
Thank you. Does that raise any other questions for any other board members? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to the petitioner's representative.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name's Bill Taylor. I'm the applicant and also the developer of Winchester Glen.
Thank you. Did you want to reserve part of your time for rebuttal?
If needed, yes, please.
Thank you. You may begin when you're ready.
This is fairly simple. Spent the last week speaking with the planning department and right-of-way department and also the traffic department, trying to coordinate an understanding about the process. And I think we all arrived at the conclusion that's summarized in the memo that came to you today, whereby I do not need an actual driveway permit from the right-of-way department. that's unnecessary, and it was duplicating an effort, because the main concern was that traffic have an opportunity to review the driveway width. And internally, I think they've resolved that by making sure that a zoning plan review has a chance to look at the plot plan and the driveway width, and if it is less than 40 feet, they do route it to the traffic department for review. So I think we've solved the problem, and I don't have to pay an unnecessary permit through right-of-way, and this is a very good outcome, I think, for both me, the applicant, and also the department that would require an unnecessary extra work. And that's my summary. If the board has any questions.
Thank you. And you have 8 minutes, 25 seconds for rebuttal. Are there any questions for the petitioner's representative? Mark Seward.
I'm sorry, I should have logged off. But no, I had no comments on this one.
Thank you, sir. Seeing and hearing no one else, we'll now open it up to public comment. Do we have any? We don't have anyone in the room here who wishes to speak tonight. Seeing and hearing none, and no one having logged their interest by 2 o'clock today, we will now return to petitioner's representative. The petitioner, Bill Taylor. Would you like
Yes, I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, are there any questions at this time for Bill? Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public hearing and the matter rests with the board. May I have a motion for modification of the plat note? To assist someone making that modification, does staff have a revised written copy of what they're proposing? Thank you. Kevin Cross, you have the floor.
Okay, I've got here in my hand a note from Municipality of Anchorage. It looks like it's from Colin Hodges, Senior Planner. As far as the department recommendation, I'm going to make a change in what's being requested here. The department recommends changing the modified note, and so this is what we move. I move for Winchester Glen Subdivisions Plat 19A. Glen subdivision, okay, for a modification of existing plat note number 9 to read, development of lots 10 through 17 must be reviewed by the traffic engineering department prior to approval of the building permit to ensure all proposed driveways meet current code and municipal driveway standards.
And your motion has been seconded by Valerie Ritz. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, it looks like this proposed change, I'm basically just going to read it because this one is a little more complex than I'm used to dealing with for something so simple as driveway permits, but not something we typically deal with, but it looks like we're clarifying and making things a little bit easier for petitioner. It looks like this was a bit of a snafu on the development side, but this proposed change to the recommendation condition of approval is intended to require traffic department review and approval of driveway locations on the lots of Winchester Glen subdivision with less than 40 feet frontage as recommended through the staff report, without the need for the applicant to go through the additional steps of obtaining a driveway permit.
Thank you. Are there any additional findings the board would like to make? think the additional findings I'd like to make is that we're finding that there's changed conditions in this case. The changed condition, even though it was granted at the same time as the original plat, is that there was a misunderstanding with respect to the need for a full permit and the application of a curved curb. And therefore, we have jurisdiction to address making this change as a changed condition. Does that raise any other issues from the board? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the vote. Valerie Ritz.
Yay.
Kevin Cross.
Yay.
Don Porter.
Yay.
Mark Seward.
Yay.
Jan Weltson. Becky Lipscomb is recused. Karen McGilvray.
Yay.
And Clayton Walker, yay. And with that, the motion passes. Bill, if your motion has passed, if you're wanting to hang up, you may, unless you want to hear the next one.
I think I'll go offline. Thank you, and thank you to the board.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this point, we will excuse Karen. Thank you. Good night. And at this point, we're going to reconstitute the board. Next case, change full membership to 7 members. We now have 7 members on the board, and a positive vote only requires 4 votes to pass. And that is because we have 2 recusals on the case, and so our reconstituted number is 7. With that, we will now take up case S12575, Spinell Homes. May we have the staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an amendment request to a previously approved plat to add 3 lots and vacation of a 130-foot creek protection easement as shown on plat 2014-83. So the plat was approved on February 6, 2019, and that was to subdivide 2 lots into 27 lots and 2 tracts with a couple variances that were all approved that night. This request is being made to allow for the removal of a creek protection easement and provide additional lots in the area vacated by said easement. This is out in Eagle River, and the subdivision amendment request for additional lots and the vacation are being made to prepare the property for construction of 27 single-family homes. The petitioner is currently working on the necessary required improvements and conditions placed on the plat after approval on February 6 of 2019. This subdivision meets the minimum lot size and width requirements of AMC 2110-6 for Chuyeki River residential districts. There are no objections by the reviewing agencies of this plat action and request for vacation. Watershed Management Division, WMS, has visited the site and reclassified the drainage way on the property as an ephemeral drainage that does not require stream protection setbacks. This preliminary plat appears to generally conform with the petitioner's site's classification as shown in the 2006 Chuyeki River Comp Plan Land Use Plan map for housing and residential development, Goal 1A and 2D. In the matter of the vacation request, staff finds criteria 1 has been met. The creek setback easement appears to have been placed per the original plat, which is 2014-83, and classifications of water features can change over time, and the course of the features are also subject to change. Watershed Management Services confirm there is no stream present, and any drainage ways have protective measures in Anchorage Municipal Code. Also, Watershed is supportive of the easement vacation request. Therefore, the 130-foot creek protection easement that is proposed to be vacated may be considered surplus to the current and future needs of the public. Criteria number 2, the creek protection easement does not affect any existing or planned right-of-way. Condition 3 and 4, the creek protection easement is not intended to accommodate any existing or planned public streets or infrastructure. Criteria 5, this vacation will not have any impacts on traffic circulation and is not part of the official streets and highways plan. Criteria 6, this vacation will not result in realignment of any existing right-of-way and does not impact existing traffic circulation. Generally, reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection to the vacation request and additional lots. Staff feels that the standards are substantially met and recommends approval, subject to the conditions found on page 7 of the staff packet. The original conditions placed on S12451 are still in effect, and these are in addition to the previous approval. The petitioner's representative is here, and I can answer any questions. In essence, what they're doing is they've reclassified that creek protection easement, and now they're taking that space of land and they're putting 3 lots in there. Like I said, I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for staff? Seeing and hearing none, we will now take the petitioner's representative.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you well. Thank you.
Yeah. My name is Tony Hoffman. I'm with the Boutte Company, and I'm representing Spinell Homes on this application, as well as the original application. And with me tonight, I think, is Brandon Marcotte of Triad Engineering. He's there, and I don't see the developer here, but I think he's leaving this matter to us tonight. It is a fairly straightforward event. When we first made the application in 2018, we rezoned the property from the R3 and then we zoned it to this R1 that is currently in place and being developed as. And it was a very good thing, but at the time we didn't really look at, unfortunately, we didn't really consider the property constraints real well. And looking at after we had design in place and we were just about ready to kick off this early spring, over the course of winter, we started rethinking about what it would take to vacate that stream easement. And we got staff's or watershed management support, and they did a field visit, and we talked to them at length about this. And as far as anybody knows, this drainage has not carried water for quite some time. It may have years and years ago, but it doesn't now. And watershed management confirmed that. And with their approval or their consent, we moved forward with this vacation this spring. The property is currently being developed, and those 3 lots that we're grabbing in that area, shown on page 20 of your package, are, I guess it'd be lots 27, 28, 29, actually have water sewer services to them, and the improvements are being done right now in front of the road. The road is being curbed today and tomorrow, and it's actually turning out to be a nice project. With that, that's the history of our request. I think I'll retain the rest of my time for any questions you may have, and thank you for hearing us tonight.
Thank you. You have 7 minutes and 40 seconds for rebuttal. Do we have any questions for Tony Hoffman at this time? Seeing and hearing none, we will now take members of the public.
Hello?
Good evening. Is this Fred Ripp?
This is.
Hello, Fred. This is the Platting Board calling for your testimony in case S12575.
Yes, if it's okay, I'll just read the written statement I had prepared. I just didn't get it in on time, sorry.
Fred, are you testifying as an individual or a representative of a group?
Individual, Fred and Mary Ripp, residents.
Great. You'll have 3 minutes to testify. At the conclusion of your testimony, The board may ask you questions. If there are no questions, the phone call will end.
Very good.
If you're ready for your testimony, you may begin.
Okay, we oppose vacation of the easement requirements. We live at 9450 Eagle River Lane, directly across Eagle River Lane from the proposed easement vacation. We also own the next home to the south, 9320 Eagle River Lane, which is also across the street from this development. How is it that our property directly across the street from the proposed lots or easement vacation and connected to them by a culvert is classified as wetlands, and these proposed lots somehow have lost their wetland designation? The drainage the developer wants to fill in had for years supplied water to the previous owner of that property. In fact, ruins of his old spring house and the drainage were still there when the developer filled in the area. This proposed easement vacation area and our wetlands are connected via culvert under Eagle River Lane, which was required to be put in there by the developer, which I believe at the time was Spinelli. It was required to be put in to connect the two wetlands. On our side of the street, the creek provided drinking water to the homesteaders at 9320 Eagle River Lane, starting in the late 1950s. Eventually, residents on both sides of the road drilled wells for potable water, but to this day, creek water is used for lawns, gardens, and a continuously running fountain on our property. The creek, which on our property runs partly above and partially underground, was a big factor in the decision to buy the property. It greatly enhances the value of the property, and we do not want it ruined by having the wetland that feeds it filled in. Water rights for our property at 9320 Eagle River Lane were granted to the previous owners in about 1962, and we have paid for, maintained, and exercised these water rights continuously since then. We also believe the developer is acting in bad faith. If it was his plan all along to develop these three lots in the easement area, the lots should have been included in the preliminary plat. The business of getting a toehold plat approved and then continually chipping away, requesting plat changes and variances, etc., is simply a backdoor way to get stuff approved that would not be permitted in the original plat. It is a way to avoid public scrutiny. They know that the public is busy, has a short attention span, and will eventually be less vigilant. In fact, the developer has already stubbed in power and water to these proposed lots in the vacation in the easement area. This entire plat is already a huge unwelcome change to what was a much less densely populated neighborhood. Please at least require the developer to adhere to the original condition of the plat. Respectfully, Fred and Mary Rip. That's it.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Fred Rip? Mark Seward, did you have a...
Yes, I have one or two questions. How do you spell your last name, Fred? R-I-F-T?
R-I-P-P.
Okay. Mr. Rip, are you served by city water and sewer?
No, we're well and septic on all of the properties across the street. On both properties, I should say.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I have.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Fred Rip? Seeing and hearing none, thank you for your time, Mr. Rip.
Thank you for your time. Good day.
Good day. We'll now take our next caller.
Hello?
Good evening. Is this Jennifer Gunderson?
Yes, this is she.
Good evening, Jennifer. This is the Platting Board calling for your testimony in case S12575.
Excellent.
Jennifer, are you testifying as an individual tonight or a representative of a group?
I'm an individual.
Great. You'll have 3 minutes to testify. At the conclusion of your testimony, The board may ask you questions. If there are no questions, the phone call will end. If you're ready, you can begin your testimony.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Gunderson. I live at 19930 Samoga Circle, directly across from Owl's Nest. My family's lived here for over 25 years, and we oppose the modification being requested by Spinell. The property in question basically consists of a couple of acres that used to have a single home. The entire block of Ptarmigan where they're building consists of 3 to 4 single-family homes on good-sized lots. This whole hearing is about squeezing 3 more houses into a small area at the expense of space previously set aside for drainage. This means 30 houses instead of 27 in a space that used to have a single homestead. Basically, I feel that Spinell wants to milk every last dollar at the expense of the neighborhood. Our neighborhood has already been detrimentally impacted by Spinell and the work they're doing on Owl's Nest. This summer, they took out all the trees and vegetation from this roughly 2-acre lot, leaving 2 acres of dirt. For a while, they generated so much dust that nearby roads were like dirt roads. Neighbors and I tried contacting Spinell, requesting that they water down the site. The response I personally received was, go complain to the city. My neighbors were similarly frustrated with the discussions they had. I suspect that the noise ordinances were also disregarded. Several days there was so much noise the house shook. This construction site's been very active since work started this summer. I've been woken by loud noises as early as 6 in the morning, and some nights, like last night, they were working past 9. The kids in our neighborhood will walk past this construction site once classes resume at Ravenwood Elementary. When all this began, the Eagle River Community Council requested as few houses as possible within this subdivision. Originally, it was zoned for 2 structures. Now they're up to 27 structures, and this hearing is about increasing this by 3 more structures, up to 30 structures, at the expense of areas set aside for drainage. It's becoming clear that Spinell has little interest in our neighborhood and are simply trying to push for more and more. They've already pushed the neighbors way too far, and I request that this modification be denied. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jennifer Gunderson. Does the board have any questions for Ms. Gunderson? Thank you, Ms. Gunderson, for participating this evening.
Thank you.
And that concludes our public testimony. We will now turn back to the petitioner's representative.
Yes, the chair, this is Tony Hoffman again. I just had a couple comments about some of the remarks made. There's some remarks made, first of all, we went through all the steps with watershed management to reclassify this drainage, and we've had a lot of conversation about drainage, what the difference between drainage ways, creek setbacks, and the like tonight. And this is not a simple thing to do. And when watershed management personnel went out there, they looked at it, and they've looked at it for a couple seasons now, and it was obvious that it's not carrying any water, and it's not going to continue to. There was something brought up about a watershed or some sort of building in there, and having surveyed through that property multiple times, I've never seen any sort of a watershed. I don't know what that comment was about. There was one other thing, comment made by the lady that Mrs. Gunderson has just talked. Our construction sequencing and timing during the summer is completely in compliance with municipal ordinances. And, work hours and those kinds of things are pretty heavily regulated. So, and I guess I'm mirroring what she said. If she sees something the contractor's doing that's not appropriate or is out of hours that they should be working, she should be notifying the municipality or the police department. Because to our knowledge, that the contractor is liable for that, and not necessarily the developer, but the developer's not shirking that responsibility either. And last, I would comment. It was noted that the land was previously zoned for 2 structures. That is not true. It was zoned R3, R3SL previously in the rezone that they did in Eagle Crossing in the 90s. And that R3 zoning, if we would have put, and we looked at a lot of options in here, if we would have put multifamily dwellings in there, we would have had more density than we have with these single-family 50-foot, 60-foot lots. And that was the trade-off that we made and that the developer made to develop this is, okay, well, we'll back away from the R3. Everybody, R3 is not a bad sale. It's actually, you can make more with the R3 condos, but there's more of a demand for single-family ownership now. And that's why we're going to these smaller lots. The developer, and there's a lot of places that are seeing this kind of demand now. So with that, I would reserve any other time I have to answer questions from the board. Unless I would point out that Brandon Marcotte's with Triad Engineering's online here, and I don't know if he's got any comments to make about anything he heard tonight.
You still have 4 minutes, so you can go ahead.
Sure. Yes, this is Brandon Marcotte with Triad Engineering. Just to add a few comments to what Tony has mentioned already tonight. In regards to the drainage concerns from the neighbors, you'll note on page 4 of your packet that Watershed Management has reviewed our grading plans that we have submitted as part of the subdivision improvements and noted that we're maintaining drainage connectivity through our development. So regardless of the fact that there's no stream here and that they've identified this as a drainage way at this point, they've also noted that we are still maintaining drainage connectivity through the proposed development, which should be somewhat visible on sheet 20 of your packet. You'll see a drainage easement that runs along lots 7 and 8, which is in the old configuration that assumed that the new 3 lots were not there. This drainage easement actually now runs along what is currently lot 27, as shown on page 20 of your plan set, or of your packet, and connects the drainage from the north east down to the southwest. So we are maintaining drainage connectivity. This is a low-lying area, but it does not contain streams that require the same protections that were originally established under the old zoning, as Tony had mentioned. These drainage ways enjoy a 10-foot protection, and that's what we're doing by establishing these 10-foot easements on either side and maintaining the connectivity from the northeast to the southwest. As far as the construction goes, I would also reiterate what Tony had mentioned. The timing of this request is probably a little unfortunate. Construction is noisy and it does generate dust. But as Tony has mentioned also that we're doing everything that we can to comply with current municipal code, and if there's anything that is being done outside of normal operating hours, then those should be reported. But the construction is wrapping up as far as the civil improvements goes. So that should be coming to an end here shortly, towards the end of the season here at the end of this month. I don't have any additional comments beyond that.
Thank you. And with that, does the board have any questions for the petitioner's representative? Mr. Cross.
Yes, to the petitioner. I'm just curious, and perhaps staff can answer this. If it's a stream and then a stream continues, do we know if any other areas and any other developments or plats nearby have where this same channel has been designated as private drainage or as drainage and not as a stream? Or is that
Through the chair, this is Tony Hoffman. No, we haven't really followed this. I know upstream there's nothing to the east. There, maybe something way down in the valley, but as far as I know, there's nothing contiguous to this, what was a drainage easement, anymore.
And I realize my question might be more appropriate for watershed management, but they're not here. But
Right.
I'm very curious.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, with that, we will close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and the matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve the request for vacation of a 130-foot creek protection easement shown on Plat 2014-083? Kevin Cross.
Yeah, I move to approve the request for the vacation of a 130-foot track protection easement as shown on Plat 2014-083, subject to recording a suitable plat within 24 months of approval and any approved time extensions.
Thank you, and Valerie Ritz has seconded your motion. Did you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, this is similar to a case we heard earlier, in which case we have what was a designated stream setback, and then, watershed management has determined that this is now a drainage. And the fear, I think, it's when the public hears this, and we had two individuals from the public come forward with concerns that, essentially, I think their thoughts are that they're just going to bulldoze this, fill it in with dirt, and build houses, and I don't think that that's the case. I mean, obviously, because even if it's considered a drainage, as we see on staff packet number under 4, was it page number 4? Yeah, Eagle River Street Maintenance Comments, section 14. Street maintenance, says staff has reviewed the case, and in relation to the proposed easements, we have no objections. However, the approved plan sets there is dedicated drainage ways that are proposed discharge in this existing easement. We would need to have some definitive plan of what's being proposed to deal with these two features before agreeing to any vacation, subject to the agreement. And we see that actually. That's going to be covered actually in section B, but that is in motion B. But I will be moving to approve this request.
Thank you. And are there any other members of the board that would like to make findings? Seeing and hearing none, we will call the vote. Valerie Ritz.
Yay.
Kevin Cross.
Yay.
Don Porter.
Yay.
Mark Seward.
Yay.
Jana Welton.
Yay.
And Karen and Becky are absent. I, Clayton Walker, I should say Karen and Becky are recused, and I, Clayton Walker, am voting yay. With that, the motion has passed. We will next turn our attention to a motion to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to conditions 1 and 2. Kevin Cross.
I move to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to conditions 1, resolve utility easements, and resolve with Eagle River Street Maintenance the need for a location of any drainage easements in the vacated easement per subdivision agreement 19-007, page C10.
Thank you. And do we have a second? I believe Valerie Ritz is seconded. Kevin, did you want to speak to your motion?
Just want to refer back to my notes as I made in motion A. Additionally, I would like to point out on the stat package pages 5, 6, and at the top of 7, the 6 different criteria by which a vacation request must apply and pass. and all 6 criteria were met.
Thank you. Any other findings the board would like to make? In that case, I'll call the vote. Valerie Ritz.
Yay.
Kevin Cross.
Yay.
Don Porter.
Yay.
Mark Seward.
Yay.
Jen Welton.
Yay.
Becky Lipson and Karen McGilvray are recused. Clayton Walker, yay. And the motion has passed. That completes the new business. I have a comment from the secretary.
Through the chair, I just want to bring to your attention that the next planning board meeting in November is not Wednesday the 4th, but the following day, Thursday the 5th. We were bumped by the assembly. Thank you.
I have a short comment. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, if they're not already aware, that Tom Holger Dreyer passed away September 27, 2020. He commonly appeared before us and has done a great contribution to the city with all of his work and surveying over the years and the projects that he's been involved in, and wanted to mark his passing before our board. And with that, we'll now stand on adjournment.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.